Welcome back to Telltale Poetry Submissions Interview Series. I'm thrilled to be interviewing award-winning poet Kai Coggin, who has a new book out entitled Mining for Stardust, just released by FlowerSong Press. Kai's previous books include Incandescent, Wingspan, and Periscope Heart. She is a queer woman of color who thinks Black Lives Matter, a teaching artist in poetry with the Arkansas Arts Council, and the host of the longest running consecutive weekly open mic series in the country, Wednesday Night Poetry. She was recently awarded the 2021 Governor Arts Award and named Best Poet in Arkansas by the Arkansas Times. Her poems have appeared or are forthcoming in Poetry, Cultural Weekly, Entropy, Swim, and so many others. She is associate editor at the Rise Up Review and lives with her wife and their two adorable dogs in the valley of a small mountain in Hot Springs National Park, Arkansas. Welcome, Kai, and thank you so much for taking time to talk with me today about Telltale Poetry Submission Interview Series. So
thank you so much, Trish. I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
It really is such a pleasure. We've had a lot of virtual connections recently, and then we just found out yesterday that we actually finally get to meet in person at AWP for a panel that we're doing together, which is super exciting.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's going to be a really great panel. It's actually about building a virtual poetry community. So certainly that ties in, a little bit with what we'll be talking about today. And then you have another panel too. Did you want to mention what your other panel is?
The other panel is with J.P. Howard and Tamara Madison and Sandy Yanone, and it's also about building and sustaining poetry community beyond the page and beyond the stage. And so that's really exciting. I've got two panels, both about community, which is the work that I hold closest to my heart when it comes to poetry. So I'm super excited, and it'll be the first time that I ever go to AWP and be awkward with all the other awkward poets, and that'll be just really fun. I'm really looking forward to meeting you and seeing you and hugging you and talking with you more about poetry. We've had many years together on the virtual side through Facebook and stuff, and so I'm honored to finally share actual space in our bodies, in person at AWP.
Certainly, me too. AWP is great. It really can be. It can be overwhelming, but it can also be very exhilarating. And it is awesome to meet some of the people that, we feel like we know pretty well through virtual means, right? Through social media or through, other poetry readings and workshops. So yeah, I'm not going to lie. It was pretty awesome for me when I went in the past. So it'll be great to see you there.
I'm really excited.
I guess I just want to start with, really, you've done, we've watched each other just sort of grow. We kind of came onto the scene around the same time, but can you tell me a little bit about what got you started writing poetry in the first place, and then what made you want to start sending your work out for publication?
Sure. We have really watched each other grow, and it's been kind of awesome to lean on each other and see each other, getting up this ladder of being seen more and being more visible and being more of a name that people know. And you and I both have so much work in helping other communities and other people. And so it's been really cool to be sort of a friend and partner through this. You even blurbed one of my books early on.
I did. Yes.
So thankful for that. Yeah. So what got me back into poetry, I guess, is I graduated with a degree in poetry and creative writing from Texas A&M. And when I graduated, I was like, well, what the hell do I do now? How do I become a poet? What does that even mean? And I don't have an MFA or anything. And so just in my Bachelor of Art Studies, I didn't really learn too much about publishing or about submitting poems or the process or anything like that. So I didn't actually have the logistical know-how of how to turn this degree into a career. And so I got my emergency teacher certification, and I went into teaching high school. And I taught high school English for 5 years in the same school district that I grew up in Houston, Texas, in Alief. And it was a poetry project with Sandra Cisneros that really was with one of her poems that really pulled me back into poetry and showed me how powerful words and stories and agency of language and agency and power of your own story can be. And so it's a really long, really good story, but I'm not gonna tell it right now. But basically the story ends with Sandra Cisneros coming to visit my 200 9th and 10th graders at this, you know, school in the hood, I guess you could say, you know, kind of in the bad part of Houston. And it really gave my students a sense of importance. It showed them that their words mattered. And the fact that she came to see my kids and to hear my kids read their poetry, it was just like, wow, poetry is a really magical tool. It's a really
Yes.
beautiful way for students, for people, for children, for anybody to express their feelings, to express their stories. And so um, after that whole event with Sandra, she sort of looked at me and she was like, you know, you're a poet. You have this in you. And she also wrote a blurb for my very first book. And so it was her giving me that sense of seeing. She saw me, and she invited me to Macondo, which was her writer's workshop in San Antonio. And that really just, it put me on this other path. So I won Teacher of the Year that year. I won Teacher of the Year out of the whole school district and then out of 85,000 teachers in the city of Houston. And then I quit to become a full-time poet. Joanne, my now wife, and we moved to Arkansas, and I started writing full time. I went back into my poems and just started editing and revising and seeing what I actually had, you know, what I had been doing, what I had been working on, but that I had put on the back burner for so long. And I brought those up to that front burner, put together a first manuscript, and I sent it out to a contest with Swimming with Elephants Publications, and it won. And that was my first book that was picked up back in 2014. But the very first poem that was picked up was at Elephant Journal. And I remember screaming and running throughout the house and just saying, oh my God, one of my poems is getting published. I'm going to be a published poet. And I didn't really know what that meant. I didn't know how to do it. It was a blog that I had followed, just like your blog. You know, I followed it when I was reading about writing and things like that. And there was a little button that said, submit your story. And I was like, what does that mean? So I pushed the button, and all of a sudden this world of submission guidelines and all these things came up, and I was like, oh, this is how you do it. You know, so I followed the guidelines. I sent in a poem about a Buddhist temple called Bodhi, and there was an explosion at this Buddhist temple. And how the Bodhi tree, despite the explosions, this beautiful ancient tree at this temple survived. And so that was the very first poem of mine that got published in, I guess it was late 2012, maybe. And that was just, it just opened my whole world. Like, this is how you do it. This is what publishing is. This is what being a poet means, you know? So that was my first experience with that.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that's fun. I think my
Yeah.
first non-university published poem was in 2012 too. So we really have kind of,
Wow.
so yeah, it really has, it's felt that way, but I didn't realize how close our journeys were. So that's really kind of neat. So what are the most important things you learned when you were first starting to send out work, or maybe that you've learned over the years?
I felt that I was pretty lucky early on, you know, getting that poem published, and then finding a network on Facebook of really like-minded and like-hearted women, frankly, that were so supportive and that had different publications and blogs and literary journals themselves that were already establishing a network of other people, other readers, and other poets. And so for me personally, not having an MFA and not having a community of academic writers to be in a cohort with, this became my cohort, and you are part of that cohort. And Catherine Schwieg and Christina Norcross and Jeannie Roberts, and they all have these literary journals and organizations and communities that foster spiritual writing, spiritual poetry, healing, lifting up women's voices. And so I started sending out my poems to these different organizations and journals that were on that vibration, that were on that level. And they started also getting published. And the luck that I had with Swimming with Elephants publications to get my first book out, you know, I feel like I've really been held in a lot of ways by many different publishers, many different communities. Here locally, you know, with Wednesday Night Poetry, that was a big driving force for me also. And we'll probably talk a little bit about that later, but you know, just community has always been something that has really helped me. But what I've learned through these years now, almost 10 years of sending work out and um, being published, is that rejections are not that bad. You know, when you get a rejection, it's not, at first it felt like a rejection to like who I am and myself as a writer and those things. But I've really learned over the years that when you get rejected from a journal, it's just that that poem just hasn't found the right place yet. You know, there's going to be a
Yes.
perfect place for that poem. And now, as an editor myself, you know, I can empathize with editors and readers of journals that they could be having a bad day. They could be going through a divorce. They could be having kids screaming in the corner, or, you know, their dog chewing on their leg while they're reading your poem. And everything is just so subjective in the poetry world that, you know, you just can't take it personally. And so I've just tried to just send more and more work out, different packets, and really looking into what a journal publishes, what their guidelines are, the kind of work, the kind of, you know, vibration, energy, themes that they put out, you know, and it takes a little bit of work, but I've had some pretty good luck with that. So yeah, rejections are not that bad. It's just it's not ready yet, and it's not the right place for it just right yet, right
That
now. Yeah.
that's so true. Like you said, there are just so many variables. So, I mean, sometimes it
Yeah.
could be they received, you know, 5 poems about, I don't know, puppies. And so, and,
Exactly.
you know, they can only put 1 poem about puppies in the issue.
Yeah,
So they have to choose from maybe 5 really great poems. I mean, I don't envy that of
exactly.
editors, because I think a lot of times, you know, they do get a lot of brilliant work that they have to somehow, you know, select just certain ones, and then they have to leave all these others on the table, you know. So I certainly, you know, empathize with how editors, you know, work through all of that too. So no, that's a really great point. I'm so glad that you shared that. You mentioned Wednesday night poetry, so we are going to talk about it. It
Okay.
really, I mean, it's definitely, you and I both, you know, do a lot of work in our local communities, right? And we were talking before
Hmm.
we started the interview about how great it is to get that, you know, instant feedback and to work with individuals on that kind of in-person level, which, you know, once the pandemic hit, that opportunity, I mean, just got shut off like instantly, right? So we all had to sort
Yeah.
of, you know, adjust. And that's what happened with Wednesday night poetry. And you just did such a phenomenal job really taking this, you know, beautiful local community open mic to a global level. And really, I mean, you found this incredible blend of these well-known poets that you were able to, you know, through your network connect with, and bring those to the stage along with, you know, your local regulars and with, you
Yeah.
know, emerging poets like me out in Utah or whatever, you know, we all got to participate in this really great format that I know you spend so much time putting together, and they're just beautiful. And I love to go back and like just kind of skirt through them and pick out little ones to go watch. And
Yeah.
it really is great. So I wanted to ask you, what surprised you the most about the response that you got when you went virtual with Wednesday night poetry?
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to say that you are not an emerging poet. You are a well-known poet, a celebrated poet. And if you're still emerging, then I'm still emerging, honey. We are emerged, I would say. We are out of the chrysalis and we are out here doing our work.
To be fair, I don't have a full length out yet, although I am sending one out. So that's why I don't know. I still consider myself emerging. I
Okay.
feel like I still have a lot to do. So maybe that's where that comes from. But at any rate,
Okay.
thank you
Well,
for
that's
that.
just because you're such a giver and you help so many other people and other journals and other organizations, but we see you out here, Trish. We see you. We see you. We see your work. We see your poems. We see you. So I just wanted to
Thank
say
you.
that first.
Thank you for that.
Yes, you're welcome. So Wednesday Night Poetry, the thing about it is that, there's this streak that we have. And this week it's going to be 1,708 weeks in a row that we've had
I got
Wednesday Night
goosebumps.
Poetry. 1,708 weeks. And so that's over 32 years that we've never missed a Wednesday. So when I was asked to take over as the host back in 2019, the founder, Bud Kenny, who passed away later that year, he wanted me to take it into the future. And I didn't have any idea that the future was going to be, this global pandemic.
Sure.
And so yeah. So our last in person was March 11th, 2020. And that next week, March 18th, I was like, oh God, we're on lockdown. What do we do? How do I do this? I don't want to break the streak.
Right.
I'm not going to break the streak on my watch. I'm not going to be the person that just ended our streak. Like, no, hell no. So when I went to Facebook and I just asked, I messaged our local poets and I just said, send me a video of yourself reading a poem and I'll post it at the same time that we would normally meet in person. And because we were all in such a state of shock locally and we didn't know what was going on, and there was so much palpable fear and tension and anxiety in the air, and our feed was all frenetic and crazy, and everyone was it was so scary that first week. And I get chills now thinking about it.
Yeah, no, it really was.
That first week, we didn't know what was about to happen to all of us, globally,
Right.
and everyone was feeling this at the same time. And so having this sense of normalcy and community just for our locals, to send me a poem and I'm going to post it at the same time, just so we'll still have Wednesday Night Poetry. So I had like 50 people send me a poem that first week, right? And I was like, oh God, what the hell am I doing? How do I upload 50 videos to Facebook? And, I've made a lot of strides in like learning how to compress files and easier upload and faster speed, making them smaller. But I was uploading these ginormous files, like file sizes. And it would take me hours, literally like 12 hours of uploading. It was ridiculous, but I didn't know what I was doing. And I feel like a lot of the other organizations and series and things that go on across the country, they had sort of a time of adjustment, and
Sure.
like I didn't have that learning curve. I just jumped right in, literally the first Wednesday of lockdown, and I didn't even know what Zoom was. Yeah, I had
Right.
never Zoomed. I don't Skype. I FaceTime my nephew every once in a while, but that was pretty much the extent of my like video calling live, knowledge. So
Sure.
what sets apart Wednesday Night Poetry is that I'm still doing it the same way. I'm still uploading, between 30 and 50 videos every week. And this week will be 75 weeks that we've had the virtual Wednesday Night Poetry. 75 weeks. Over 3,500 poems and features have been shared. And so what's been the most surprising is that after that very first week, when I opened it up to poets anywhere, it took off. It really took off because it was so bleak. It was so dark. We felt so isolated, and people were just hungry for community, hungry for warmth. And it was that second week of the virtual that I did that thing that I do, putting my hand up to the screen, and that just came from, I don't know, it just came from my heart. It was just a gesture that came right from my heart. And I just wanted so desperately to touch people, to feel that touch again. And that gesture, that vulnerability, that warmth, that love that I really intentionally cultivate on Wednesday night poetry. So many people have told me that it's just really helped them get through such a dark and isolating time. And honestly, it gave me purpose during this time, because
Sure.
normally I'm in the classroom teaching poetry to kids, and just like that's where all my heart energy goes. And so I had nowhere to put that. So I put it into you poets,
Yeah.
and it really, really took off when at Earth Day last year, we
Yes.
had Jane Hirschfield, Joy Harjo, and Naomi Nye
Was
on
so
one reading.
incredible. Yes.
And then so when that got out, people were just like, wow, what is she doing that could have attracted this level of energy, these poets, these stars? And they were all, the three of them, the Earth Mothers, they were so happy to read with each other, um, and to do this. And something that the pandemic has done in the poetry community is that it has really kind of taken away a lot of the gates, the walls that
Yes.
separated, the different levels of poets, because these are the cream of the crop. These are the highest echelons of our living poets right now, the chancellors of the blah 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 and the U.S. Poet Laureate. Um, and so when those gates are destroyed or knocked down, that sense of community again really opens up to people. And so having emerging poets, rising stars, first timers on the same platform as the US Poet Laureate, it was a really neat thing to be able to facilitate for people and to do. And it was so surprising that it all really manifested. And since then, I mean, pretty much any poet you can think of, I have been able to get to perform and be a part of our community. There's still a few that are holding out, but I'm still working hard to get Natalie Diaz.
Oh, yes.
A
Oh, that would be
few people, but
fantastic.
she's pretty busy with the Pulitzer
Sure.
win, and yeah, but
Yeah.
anyway, it's been surprising how much people have been reciprocal about the warmth, and just being a part of it. So I've been really honored. It's really one of the honors of my life to have been able to do this during such a dark time, to be a light for people.
And it certainly was. I mean, I was super grateful for it. I know that it certainly turned some of my Saturdays into better days. So
Mm,
I know that the rest of the poetry community is really grateful for that. And it really did have that hometown feel about it, where you have some features, but then you have all your local favorites, and you have such a wide variety of people and voices and different styles and types of poetry.
yeah,
And I really enjoyed that. I mean, there were several where I literally watched every single one and just felt like I was at an open mic. So
I
I
know,
really,
that's cool, isn't
yeah,
it?
it really is. It really is a great format.
And it's
So
really different from, hold on, it's really different from the way that the Zooms are, because once a
sure.
Zoom is done, it's done. You can
Right.
watch the replay or whatever, but these videos take on, once they're posted, like they're on there just rippling out forever. I go back to some of the features and stuff, and there's like 12,000, 15,000 views on some of them. And it's just like they live on.
And the
So, and it's
comments,
been
people
really,
interacting,
yeah,
I mean, they
yeah.
really do continue. Yes.
They do. So it's sort of like creating a poetry time capsule for us, because we went through
Yeah.
week by week writing everything that happened. We wrote about George Floyd, we wrote about the election, we wrote about, Elijah McCain and Breonna, all these things that happened in 2020 and beyond. we
Right.
we directed our thoughts as poets every week, because I consciously did that. I said, let's all write about Black Lives Matter. Let's all write about blue. Let's all write about water during the wildfires in California. So poetry is a powerful thing. It's a type of magic, that's for sure.
Nope, I agree with you completely. And I think I love thinking about it as a time capsule, for everything that we experienced in that year and going forward. So I'm definitely excited for you to be able to take it back local. We
Yeah,
will certainly miss the online iteration, and maybe someday in the future something else might blossom from that. Um, but I certainly am looking forward to you being able to, bring it back home and be able to do those in person again.
Well, I may be crazy, but I'm going to continue doing the virtual also throughout the
Oh,
end of
you
the
are?
year. Yeah,
Oh,
so
through
I'm
the
gonna
end of the
do a
year. Okay.
hybrid.
Well,
Yeah, yeah,
right, right. No, that's excellent. That's excellent. It,
yeah. So we
maybe
still have a
there.
couple months.
Okay, okay. That's good. At least have a little bit of time before.
Yeah.
But there is something that's really exciting that I want to make sure that we talk about, and that is your new book, Mining for Stardust.
Yes.
It's just released in mid-November, and it's your fourth book. And you've also worked with 4 different presses each time. So did you have like some aha moments working on publication with each one? Like, I don't know, something that surprised you or excited you about the publication process? And I imagine that, each press was a little bit different in how they manage things. So just curious what those experiences were like.
My first experience with Swimming with Elephants publications, I was still in such a state of just perpetual shock that I was going to have a book coming out, that I was just like, here it is, do whatever you want with it. My wife Joanne painted the covers for all of my books, so really the only input that I had in that first book was, here's the book cover, that she painted, and they did an amazing job publishing it and putting it together and stuff. My second publisher of Wingspan with Golden Dragonfly Press, I got to work a lot closer with her as an editor, going through and doing a lot of the design, some of the design elements to it. Again, the cover art was front and back, and I wanted that to be perfect because the wings, when you open the book, the wings open.
Yes, it's beautiful.
And
Yes.
thank you, thank you. And so Alice Maldonado over there at Golden Dragonfly, I've just been really lucky, Trish. All of the editors that I've worked with, Brian Borland and Seth at Sibling Rivalry Press here in Arkansas. That was my third book with Incandescent. And now Edward Vidaure at FlowerSong. They've all been so warm and open to working with me because I'm kind of a perfectionist. I'm a Capricorn. I'm very like goal oriented. If I have a vision, I need it to be exactly how I see it, because I'm very particular with design and where the words fall on the page and where, pretty much all of it. I'd imagine that it's kind of probably kind of challenging at times. And so before I go further, I just want to say thank you to all of the editors out there at all of the small presses that are putting books out, because working with, just with me, is probably a handful, but they work with dozens and dozens every year to put these collections out there. And a lot of the times they're doing it not getting paid too much,
Sure,
small presses,
sure.
independent presses, they're not making a lot of money. So it's a labor of love. And I've seen how hard they work. And so mostly what I feel is gratitude for small presses. There are so many small presses out there and many more that are starting every day, that just want to put more books out there and represent voices of color and queer voices and, indigenous voices. And it's just amazing to watch what's going on in the publishing world. And to also see that with the uses of social media, especially Twitter, that a lot of the small presses are getting bigger footing, bigger reach than they were just
yes.
5 years ago, And so I'm happy to see more of that playing field getting leveled in our industry. So it's really cool just to watch on the outside, but also to be a part of what's going on in publishing. It's neat.
Yeah, no,
But mostly
definitely.
gratitude.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. No, I'm glad you said that. I think that's definitely something that there could be a little more of that in the literary community, right? I think,
Sure.
I too often, well, I shouldn't say often, but occasionally I will get, a nice message or comment from someone that says, "Hey, thanks for everything that you do." Um, and we probably all need to work a little bit more at, reaching out to those that are really volunteering their time. And I mean, I think since we're both volunteers ourselves, we're usually
We
so busy with that
understand. Yeah.
stuff. I'm like, goodness, I have some work to do. I probably need to say thank you, explicitly a little more often. So I really appreciate that. It's great inspiration, I think, for everybody. So tell us where people can find you online and also where they can get a copy of Mining for Stardust.
You can find me online on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I don't understand TikTok, so I'm not doing the TikTok yet.
I
But
haven't
just look
touched
up my
that either.
name. I know. I'm like, I can't. I'm barely dipping my pinky toe into Twitter, kind of late to the party, but it's fun. I like it.
I do too.
So I'm Skylight on Instagram and Twitter, and it's SKAI light. It has Kai in there. So it's kind of a play on words, Skylight. And on Facebook, I'm just Kai Coggin. Kai Coggin Poet is my author page. You can order signed copies of Mining for Stardust from my website, kaicoggin.com, or you can order it straight from the publisher at FlowerSongPress.com.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us. I'm so tickled to meet you in person in March. I really just can't wait. I know it's just gonna go super fast, but right now it feels like it's way too far away.
Yeah.
But this was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us and for all of your words of wisdom and sharing your experience and all the inspirational things that you gave us today. Really, just always such a pleasure. So thank you again for joining us. And thanks to Telltale Poetry for putting together this incredible interview series. So I will.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate all that you do for our poetry community. And thank you, Telltale Poetry, for hosting this event. And I can't wait to see you in person either. And give you a big hug.
Absolutely. It's going to be great. Thanks again, Kai. Have a great rest of your day.